All right, today I'm going to be speaking about the history of our national anthem. It was written by Francis Scott Key in 1814 on the night of September 14th after the battle at Fort McHenry. Our national anthem, the Star Spangled Banner, was written in 1814 and it was inspired by the battle that took place at Fort McHenry during the War of 1812. The British were unrelenting on the night of September 13th. Little did the colonists know the actions of the American people this night would be remembered for the entirety of this country. It is a song for the American people and inspired by the sacrifice of the American people. Francis Scott Key was a lawyer from Baltimore, and the colonies were engaged in a conflict with Britain at the time. There were prisoners from both the colonies and from Britain. So Francis Scott Key was selected to go and negotiate a trade between the British and the colonists. On his way out to a boat that was in the harbor, he took a rowboat out to meet with the admiral. He negotiated a trade, 1 for 1, American soldiers for British. As he went down below to see the conditions that these soldiers had been living in, it was filthy, it was disgusting, but he gave them the news. They would be released. He came back out to speak with the admiral. The admiral said, "We have a slight problem. We will still honor the deal that we have agreed upon, but it will be merely, political after this, because after tonight, the war is going to be over." Francis Scott Key said, "Why? What do you mean we have an issue? Why do you think the war is going to be over?" He said, "Look at the horizon. On the horizon, you see hundreds of little dots." He said, "That's the entire British war fleet. We're going to come here, and we are going to wipe this fort off the face of the earth." Something you got to understand about the British war fleet: their cannons could shoot out to 2 miles, and their rockets could hit 1.75 miles. The cannons at this fort, they couldn't defend themselves from that. Francis Scott Key looked at the admiral and said, "Please, you can't do this. This is predominantly not a military fort. These are women and children. These are farmers. You can't do this to these people." He said, "No, don't worry. We've left them a way out. You see that flag up on the rampart? If they lower that flag, we'll end the shelling immediately, and you will be under British rule." The shelling started September 13th at 6 o'clock in the morning and went on for 25 hours. Hundreds of ships fired at these civilians. 14 hours into the bombardment, the admiral looks at Francis Scott Key and says, "What is wrong with these people? Don't they know that this is futile? There's nothing that they can do. They cannot win." He says, "I recall George Washington saying that the thing that sets the American Christian apart from any other person in the world is that they will die on their feet before they serve on their knees." The admiral looks at Francis Scott Key again and says, "I don't understand. Reconnaissance has told me that that flag has been hit over and over and over again all throughout the night." 2 o'clock in the morning the next morning, you can feel the sun about to come up. The prisoners are sitting down below. They're shouting up, "Francis, what's happening? What's happening to the flag? Is it still there?" He goes down, reassures them the flag is still there. They didn't waste all their time and effort and everything they've lost for nothing. The flag is still standing. The sun comes up. There's a heavy mist upon the land. But the rampart is high enough. You can see the flag. You can see it all through the night. Every time a bomb went off, it's still there. They still had hope. So Francis Scott Key goes ashore to find out what had happened. These civilians in this fort knew that if that flag fell, everything was for nothing. These civilians went up and held this flag by hand. And when they'd get hit by a cannon, another man would come out, pull the body away, and hold that flag up. The flag was still standing in the morning, but it wasn't straight up. It was at a weird angle. These men gave their lives. These civilians gave their lives to make sure that Britain did not conquer this place. And for that, I think we should honor them. Every time that we sing the Star Spangled Banner, we should recognize that it's not just the soldiers who lost their lives that night. It's civilians, just like you, who fought for this country. So that was very awkward.
Yeah, I felt like you should went last.
Probably.
What's going on, team? Hopefully you guys learned something amazing tonight. That speech was only supposed to be 3 minutes long. I made it 5. I could have easily spent 20 minutes on the story. I did that story a grave injustice. I would look it up for yourself, learn all there is to know about it. It'll give you a lot of pride in being an American, even if you're a civilian. You know, like I said in the video, or in the speech, the sacrifices weren't just made by soldiers. And speaking of people being oppressed, every time the NFL takes a knee during the national anthem, they're telling that African American soldier who died that night that that song was inspired. Private William Williams, who gave his life defending that fort. They're telling him to go fuck himself. Jeez. You know, the NFL can politicize all this shit whenever they want. They can protest. We can protest too. We don't have to watch their shit. We don't. You know, if they want to talk about oppression, they should be talking about the shit that actually matters. How about, why is there a Planned Parenthood in every predominantly black neighborhood in this country? Nobody's talking about it. How about the lady who founded Planned Parenthood said in her founding statement that the goal here is to reduce the population of niggers abroad? Nobody's talking about it. Why is nobody talking about it? Why? Let's talk about it. It's bullshit. It's fucked up. It's actual racism. Nobody cares. You should care. Oh, wait. For the people who are saying that Planned Parenthood is all about women's choice, it has nothing to do with racism. Okay. If I punch a 4-month pregnant lady in the stomach and she has a miscarriage because of me, I go to prison for manslaughter, for fucking murder. The government has facilitated planting these facilities in predominantly black neighborhoods, and they have supported making laws that allow women to murder children as long as it is predominantly black women killing their children. You should be a lot more pissed off than you are right now. Yeah. Nobody's talking about it. Why? Tell me why. Well, mostly because the people who can do something about it, or the people who are in tune with what's going on, they just go out in the wilderness. They live alone. They don't give a fuck. They're being selfish as shit. Yeah, the world's got problems. They're not going to do anything about it. It's very selfish. I love it when these NFL players they say that they're harming Dr. President Trump. They're not. You're harming your brothers and sisters who have sacrificed everything to make sure that you still have those rights that you take for granted every fucking day. If you want to talk about something that matters, let's talk about the equality between men and women. I just told you one thing. Men go to prison for it. Women get praised for it. It's bullshit. And even the women who speak up against it, like that women's march in D.C. a few months back when Dr. President Trump got elected, they were told not to come because they don't give a fuck about their opinions. Women are not even allowed to talk about this shit. So if a woman is just as qualified as a man, and the man applies for the job, the woman will always get the job for equal opportunity bullshit. If a white man and a black man apply for the same job, with the same training, same education, the black man will always get the job. That's bullshit. That's not equality. It's not equality. There's more scholarships for black people. There's more scholarships for minorities, for women. If you're a white male between the ages of 16 and 65, you're fucked. You're going to earn every fucking thing you get on your own, and you're going to grind your ass off to get there. Now, it's not to say there's still racism going on. The government is systematically designed to keep the white man down. But there's still a lot of fucking racism going on, and it's unacceptable. All of it's unacceptable. There's bullshit everywhere. And we need to be talking about all of it. And the millisecond you narrow it down to only the shit that pertains to your set group of people, we lose. Because we're all Americans. Whether you're black, you're brown, you're white, we all cut and bleed the same fucking blood. You know? As soon as you start thinking of yourself or your group as individuals, we all lose. Because we're all in this together. Whether you like it or not. My sacrifice isn't greater than your sacrifice. Well, you know, I'll leave you on a good note. We kicked Britain's ass. Hell yeah, America, baby. But no, in my speech class tonight, there was a kid from Southeast Asia. He got up and gave a speech about how his country has been oppressed for centuries. How millions of his people, the Karen, the state is called Karen State. Anyways, you don't give a shit. Anyways, 1 million people are in Australia, 1 million are in Sweden, and 1 million are here in the U.S. And he got up. He didn't have the freedoms that we have here. He got up and thanked us as Americans for allowing him to be here to enjoy the freedoms he has today, which is outstanding. Do I still think it's bullshit that we're paying for his education before veterans, homeless people, especially Vietnam veterans? Yes, but I am grateful. I appreciate him appreciating me, appreciating him. That's pretty outstanding. You know, I'm so glad that this country is still a shining light to the world, that where we can help people who are actually oppressed. If you didn't know it, in Africa there are more slaves today than there have been ever in the history of the world. They're little African children who are starving to death, who have to steal just to eat, like I did when I was a kid. And when they get caught, their hands are gone. I wouldn't have fucking hands if I lived in Africa. I wouldn't have hands. I wouldn't have hands to serve this country with. I wouldn't have hands to do shit with. That's real oppression. If you're making $15 million a year and you're complaining about oppression, you can go fuck yourself swiftly. Anyways, getting sidetracked again. You guys have a good night. God bless you. God bless these United States of America. Yes, may God bless Dr. President Trump. I am impressed with your ability to stand up to the fucking dinosaur media. Thank you, sir.